when someone reaches out to you, like, hey, Kremena, we saw you on LinkedIn, we heard about you, we got a referral, we want to work with you. How do you kind of decide, are they a right client for me? Are they ready?
It really starts there. If they've done their homework to know the exact scope that they think they need you for, and that initial conversation of 45 minutes is, I ask them, why now, why me? They will give me their pitch. What are their top 3 priorities, and how would they know that they're successful? That's how I normally ask them. And if how do they know that they're successful is that they'll have like 1 million users on their app, or whatever is the tangible thing that they want out of this collaboration, I'll be able to know. And then the last piece of the conversation is literally like, okay, what are the questions that you have for me? Because that also tells me, and I'm extremely open book. I would say like, hey, I've never done that, but it sounds like challenging enough for me to do, or I know how to do this, and it's really the level of challenge and opportunity.
Today, I have with me Kremena Yordanova. Kremena builds momentum by design. She's an ex-adidas and ex-Reebok, and now she's a fractional CMO, pairing enterprise-grade rigor with founder-focused clarity, and starting with her readiness quiz that filters fantasy from feasible. Today, Kremena's here with me to demystify what fractionals actually do, and why the one hire to do it all mentality is a trap. Welcome to Oh Frac, the podcast where top fractional leaders share their wins, struggles, and stories from the trenches. Hosted by Adir Ron. Welcome to Oh Frac, the podcast where we dive into the world of fractional leadership, the wins, the struggles, and everything in between. I'm your host, Adir Ron, fractional CMO. And today, I have with me Kremena Yordanova. Hi, Kremena. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Adir.
Thank you for joining me today. So, Kremena builds momentum by design. She's an ex-adidas and ex-Reebok, and now she's a fractional CMO, pairing enterprise-grade rigor with founder-focused clarity, and starting with her readiness quiz that filters fantasy from feasible. Today, Kremena's here with me to demystify what fractionals actually do, and why the one hire to do it all mentality is a trap. And we got some balloons. Thank you for joining, Kremena. And let's kick it off with a little icebreaker question. So in our prep conversation, you joked about living on 5 calendars, and I can relate. I think I have 6 at the moment. What's the most ridiculous time zone mishap that you've had as a fractional juggling multiple calendars?
It's insane. I just want to mention that I have deep compassion for everyone that thinks that having it all is easy. As a highly organized in one case and highly disorganized on other cases person, the weirdest thing is I'm currently recording in UK, and you would think that being a global, and I would have so many more misalignments between just Amsterdam and London than with any other geography. So last week alone, I missed 3 opportunities to be on time for my meetings. And because you're just like not in the realm of, oh my God, it's only 1 hour. Is it before? Is it ahead? Is it this? Is it that? And it happens to me way more often than I would like to admit. But it's just such a, you also get the chance to filter who genuinely understand that I have all the alarms, I have all the reminders. It's just that when I see the clock, I'm like, yeah, sure, I have 1 more hour. No, you don't. You have to be on this call right now. So
Yeah.
The weirdest one was like this mere 1 hour difference can really tip me into starting to believe that it's hard to maintain those 5 calendars. When in reality, with the ones that are maybe in Australia, I have a client in Australia and I have a client in LA, I kind of know when I need to be on those calls. Like it's I'm there on time. The 1 hour, it gets me always.
I 100% agree with you. I think we talked about it in our prep call that I have a client based in Bulgaria, in Sofia, and that's an hour ahead of us in the Netherlands, and it always gets confusing as well.
Yeah,
so
and
I feel you.
Understanding of how to link all your calendars, and there is a big research done that you should keep things separate, so then you give a clear space and time to work on one project and clear space and time to work on another project. Works really well. But what happens when they merge so seemingly? What happens when, for instance, right now I'm for a 1-month residency? I can't postpone everything for a month. You definitely need to find a way to work with your calendars. And where is like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays separating from the other clients' work? It's just very fascinating how we get to do it all, but we need to have parameters that works for us, and it's deeply personal. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so I think that's a great segue to kind of take a few steps back and maybe hear a bit about your fractional journey. So, Kremena, how the frac did you get here?
I am questioning myself every day this question, like how the frag did I get here? And it's a very good day. I would say like it was by design. I really always wanted to do it this way. Actually, it was not so much by design, but by luck. I was already helping a couple of I wouldn't call them clients, but good friends of mine with some topics on marketing while I was still employed with my long time collaborator, which Adidas and Reebok. I stayed 17 years, but always on the side, I would be very interested in helping people with some of their marketing strategies. And one thing led to another. When I knew it's time for me to branch out and do my own thing, I already had client portfolio without knowing they were client portfolio. So
Interesting.
it was friends of mine that actually asked me, what you gonna do now? I first of all had to say I need to take a break and then redefine what I want to do, because for so long I have so many interests that were put on the like, oh yeah, one day I'll finish the book, one day I'll do this, one day I'll do that. You know, those semi unfinished businesses that you started and you never ended. And I was like, finally I'll get the chance to do that. But then again, you have the skills that people tend to like to interact with. And friends of mine were asking, hey, would you mind taking on board this and that project? But I can only quote unquote afford you for one day of the week. And I
Yeah.
was like, sure. I mean, I'm free right now. I need to pay my bills, quite frankly. And
Yeah.
and they were like, great. This means you'll be my fractional. Quite honestly, I didn't even know what that word meant 2 years ago. I was like, okay, I guess that's how we do it. I did a little bit of research, and it's a terminology that in the States and Canada is used quite often, where in the startup and scale up world,
Yeah.
where you literally don't maybe need a full time employee, but it's different from part time. And that's why I love the fractional piece, because you get me and my knowledge and my 20 years of experience on the fraction of the both price and timing, because you hire me for deliverable. And this was very important for me to understand, because from a long-term employee to run your own calendar, even because that's next to the time you sell your expertise, it just requires a different set of skills. You might be a great marketeer, but if you're not able to know how to market yourself, it's a very different, obviously, space you're operating. So
Yeah.
it happened
100%.
by circumstances and people really wanting to work with me and framing it in a way that it's, would you work on Monday? I can only afford you on Monday. And it maybe started as a frugal kind of a way to do business, but it developed into actually providing so much more value for the team at the time. And yeah, it wasn't very by design. It was by slash luck slash, oh my God, I really enjoy being involved in multiple businesses and in multiple industries, because I felt in the past that I stayed monofocus on one brand or two brands at the time.
17 years is a
It's
long
a
time.
long time. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Nowadays, no one does a career like that. So I would
Yeah.
say that it was a beautiful eye opener to say, let me open up my network and see who do I know. And it turns out everyone I knew was either doing yoga, practicing yoga, because I'm also a yoga teacher,
Oh,
or
interesting.
is in the business of selling shoes. And I had to question myself, why is that? I mean, obviously, we stick to the bubbles we create. And I find that it's so much more rewarding for me now to get educated on different industries and translate what I've learned in D2C and in sports good industry to others, because there is this multidisciplinary knowledge that we don't spend too much attention to pass. But yeah, to answer your question, it was a friend of mine literally said, hey, I can only give you one day, but I have a quite a potent project. Like, you definitely need to help me with this. And that's how it started. And one thing led to another by just mentioning, this is what I do now. This is how I operate. This is what a pilot with me looks like. It does require a lot of you to be honest about your own skills
Yeah.
and being transparent about, I don't help you with this, and that, but I do help you with this, and that. And the companies or the ventures that are ready for that are really, they show up. They show up, and all you have to do is to bring your best work forward. At least in my experience, that's how I became a fractional. And it's a very, very nice question, though. How the frack did I end up here?
Exactly. One that I'm asking myself very often. I want to get to the readiness part because we talked about the readiness quiz and I teased it earlier, but I want to put that aside for a second. And so again, going back to kind of like that moment of transition and that first project or first few projects, how you know how did that look like for you? So were they similar projects in D2C? Was it something completely different? Are you today still very focused on D2C brands, or have you kind of widened, the breadth and spread of projects that you're doing?
Yeah, great question. In terms of, I started with D2C because that's what I knew best and that's what I anchored my knowledge. Pre-pandemic, it was a big deal to everyone to have a D2C presence, and even smaller brands or smaller players in the field would be interested in how to optimize this ratio between spend on marketing working budget on brand activations or performance, purely performance marketing. And I tend to bridge that gap very well, because while I was still in Adi, I was very quote unquote furious with why we're doing all this like performance marketing so heavy on it. And then I would be quite vocal about, well, I'm only here to harvest the demand. You create the demand, and we will have endless conversations about it. And then eventually it's such a power to own the budget on both, because then it's really, really where the magic can happen. Because we shouldn't be thinking of any funnels in the mindset of the clients right now. People do not care about our funnels. It's very outdated. If anything, if anything, breaking those silos between brand awareness and acquisition and all those and conversion, because right now everything is super findable for your brand. So I started with D2C because I knew that I could give a fresh point of view on how to optimize the performance marketing without blaming the brand activation that they don't do their job, or quote unquote the other way around is like, why do we care about, you know, plastering everywhere where people maybe won't notice our campaign with brand awareness banners left and right? And that's how it started, but it evolved within the ease of B2B. I was never involved in B2B part of any scale up, but it seems that it's really well fitted for my personality, because it's a relationship building. Really, it's you creating an authority around your product, and it does require a lot long-term overview of your return of investment, and I tend to work really well like that. So what started with D2C evolved into morphing a lot of my efforts for some of the clients, not all of them, into B2B. And it's brand new for me. I'm still just last year with a client that allows me to literally play with it by understanding of, it might take those relationships 2 years to bring, results. But we start from being present in this and these organizations in this and this manner. And it goes down to even the comms. How do we structure the packages, and where do we show up, and how do we show up? And I tend to enjoy it when big deals come through. I didn't expect that that will be also something that excites me, because I used to think like, yeah, well, I have all the data. Like when people click here or there, I can immediately make actions, which was very exciting for me. But actually, to see the longevity of your efforts is also quite exciting, meaning if I do not show up and have this type of conversations, you can't expect those folks to remember you or even know who you are and what you do and come purchase through you within 2 years. So it's fascinating how how easy is actually to translate D2C to B2B, which was something that I misunderstood for so long. And I always would be quoted, I don't touch B2B.
It's
It's a different ball game, I would say.
I 100% agree with you. So I started almost 20 years ago. My background has been in B2C, and then I did games for a few years, like mobile games, and then hardcore strategy PC games. And then I kind of and then found myself in e-com and D2C, and then in B2B, starting with SMB, very product-led self-serve funnels, and then ended up in enterprise sales B2B, where we do account-based marketing and
Mm-hmm.
apply for RFPs, and a deal can take 2 years and sometimes even more. And used to think the same things, like, no, I'm a games guy. I need to see the clicks. I need to see the data ASAP. I need to see, when I worked in free to play mobile games, like the boom of iPhones, 2014, 2013, it was, all about, like, if someone doesn't convert within the first 7 days, then that cohort of data and customers is lost. And now I'm looking at, like, 2 years of a deal to come through, just to get them to sign, not even looking at how long it takes them to onboard and actually start using a product. And it's amazing how, if you kind of strip away all the bells and whistles, at the end of the day, it's like same logic,
Absolutely.
same mentality of how do you think as a marketeer, how do you build your strategy, how do you kind of deploy the tools that you have, the people that you have, how do you convey the right message to the right person at the right time. And it's amazing how that, like, doesn't change.
I love that. Thanks for sharing also part of your journey, because I think fractional or not fractional CMOs, we tend to be blamed for many of the mishaps in the business. And part of our job is also to explain it. It's almost, you have to keep on reinforcing the value that the business will get. But everyone understands businesses with amazing marketing strategies behind them. We think that it's so understood what they're doing. It's because both the strategy and the execution of it just came together very neatly. And we're like, yeah, of course, we have no doubt about some of the giants that we all love and buy from. But we, as also as professionals, we know the hard work it takes to make sure that everyone understands that part of the strategy is what to say no to. Because indeed, there are so many things that we could be doing for our clients. But part of the job I personally think I'm doing right now well, or well enough, is to explain, no, this is something that will not fit the maturity of your business at the moment. And I see that a lot of the scale ups specifically are falling into similar traps, where they would say, like, oh, I have to come across here in this manner, in that manner, but you don't have the resources to maintain it in 6 to 9 months. You need to be always doing the calculation at the back of your head. What would it take to maintain a channel, and for what reasons? Like the puzzle, you need to be able to
Yeah.
make the puzzle really make sense. Yeah.
So I think pushback is an interesting topic. How are you seeing pushback? So are you at a position right now where do you have a lot of potential kind of leads, customers that are coming in, and you're pushing back and you're saying, like, no, this is the wrong play, or the wrong strategy, or the wrong timing, or wrong budget, or sometimes even, I shouldn't be working with you. You shouldn't be working with me. You need something else, someone else.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of it right now, right? And we get the chance to decide where can we add more value. And it's really the autonomy that we get as fractionals is also the biggest tool we have. Because what if I work with someone for 9 months and that is not adding to their value for the shareholders, or for their customer, whoever their main kind of audience to please, so to say, is. And simultaneously, I'm in the business of making my body of work. So I need to be believing in the product. I need to be also, because that's how I know I do my best work. And I tend to work with founders and teams that actually are employing me or hiring me to make sure that I do challenge them. I do, and equally, I need to be challenged back. Because if we are not getting to the same page to say, not now, not this, there is a bigger opportunity, it's very easily solvable. We create this decision tree and we put our egos aside because we are there for the best outcome of this entity that it's co-creation. So we would be sitting together and see it very, very openly. What needs to happen in 3 months? What needs to happen in 6 months? Are we really, what needs to be true for this to be actually doable? And then you put all the ingredients there, and it's very easy decision because then the push and back happens very, very organically in a sense of like, yeah, I think we were too early with this. I think we should wait another 2 months, and so on and so forth. But again, if that puzzle is like how, like you having missing pieces, it falls down, it crumbles, and it's so
Yeah,
much more difficult to be repatching with different type of puzzles, just like because you kind of, oh, I need the frame to be from someone else, and you take a frame that is has nothing to do with the, what your business can be. So I would say that it's very important when you select who you want to work with, that there is this push and pull, but it's done in a way that it's always for the better of the outcome. I want to have success stories in my portfolio pretty openly, and they want to
that
make
makes
sure
sense.
that they hire the best person for the role. And honesty in the intake is the most crucial part. I would be on many occasions saying, I'm not your person, because I would know and I would foresee what type of obstacles I will have to do my best work. But I can also see that maybe they're looking for someone that it drives the message in a different manner, depending on what the culture in the organization at the moment is. And I don't subscribe for that, and vice versa. Vice versa. If, for instance, there is an organization that is like, oh my God, I really need you to be the visionary leader for this team. It's a strong team. All they miss is someone to keep reinforcing. Here is the North Star. We're going there. Here's why we're going to be. You're there to remove the obstacles from them, but someone else
I like
created
it.
the strategy. And I love also those type of gigs because, again, strategy is great, and I don't have this like, I have to own it all. It might be that I believe in the strategy, I come and I be excellent executor of that strategy because it just makes sense, but you need someone to lead your team towards that strategy, and I'm great at that. But you need to have all the ingredients for me to do my best work, and the other way around. It just needs to click, because let's not forget, for some of these companies, you being hired, you'll be maybe the most highly paid person on their team. For
Possibly,
some of
yes.
them, the investment in a senior leadership is one of the biggest thing through for the year, the months in their portfolio of what we're going to invest in this year. You might be the most expensive person, and you have to be
Exactly.
not only okay with it, but you have to be also delivering that,
To own it in a way.
to own it and to be transparent on like, wow. And I think that it brings the question that we discuss also in our pre-recording. It's sometimes because you might be that bigger chunk of their budget, they think that you can do it all, that you can do the
Exactly.
copy, that you can do this, that you can, like small things that, just because you're chief marketing means that you oversee and you know who you need to plug in and play. It doesn't mean you do it all. Actually, I would strongly recommend anyone with a title like that not to be expert in all of it, because you need to be able to tap into the experts. And the more valuable as a fractional you are is when you have a team that you can count on, either internally in the
Exactly.
organization, or you bring your own kind of solutions, because then you don't need to spend like 2-3 months figuring out who's who. You're like, hey, I have a couple of people I call, and I'm like, this is the story, this is the thing. I can explain it. The brief takes me 15 minutes
Yeah,
rather than onboarding them for 2 weeks.
exactly. And I also think it's a point of, like I said, like owning the fact that you're an expensive resource and using that as a way to prioritize not just for yourself but for that client. Because like
Mhm.
you said, there's this scope creep, and they're like, yeah, you're the fractional CMO and you know this and this and that and that, and we're already paying you, so yeah, why don't you do the copy? Why don't you work on the briefs? Why don't you do this and why don't you do that and help us with social media and help us with the email marketing? And at some point there comes this point in time where we say, you know what, I can do a lot of those things. Maybe I'm not 100% expert on all of them. I can still do them, but is it worth the budget? Is it worth my time right now to manage your LinkedIn presence? Or does it make more sense that I write the strategy and bring in the resource to do it for you? And I can focus on more strategic things. I can look at other channels. I can look at what competitors are doing. I can bring in another person to manage the campaigns. I can work on the creative briefs and make sure they're executed correctly. And it's a much better use of my time, which translates to your money, because you're at the end of the day paying me to get shit done. Let's be honest, we're here to move the needle. We're here to bring in revenue, to bring in new logos, sometimes to help with retention or churn, but those are big missions. Do you really need me to be focused on, writing a micro copy right now? Is that what's going to move the needle?
Yeah, I had examples like that in my couple of projects, and it's just fascinating because you can obviously run a lot of things with optimization with the new technology that we have available, but then you're missing the personalization of having a proper, like, PR. Let's say PR is so misunderstood misunderstood. Many people just don't pay attention to it as much as we should and can. And it's some people are like, oh, it's kind of not so important. Well, I'll argue it's one of the most important things you will have to continue doing, not only when there is an emergency, not only when you have to be launching something, but ongoing evergreen efforts. And how do you do it if PR agencies are super expensive, or if you simply remember that I forgot to see this big thing? You can have interns. There are so many solutions right now, but you need to see the cohesiveness of what's the ecosystem you're creating for a client of yours.
Exactly.
Because then, with or without you, they'll be successful.
Exactly. By the way, I think that PR is getting more and more relevant now. Everyone's talking about, let's call it AI SEO. I heard AIO, GEO, a few others. Let's call it AI SEO, or like LLM SEO, or just like being present in the big LLMs. Kind of been looking into that a lot for some of my clients. And it's like the golden days for PR, because essentially if you can get mentioned in credible sources again and again, LLMs are going to pick that up. And when someone asks, what is the top brand that does X, or how can I solve this problem, and your company, your business is the solution, if you have strong PR and strong presence, then you're going to surface more and more. So I think for many years, PR kind of was downplayed and it was looked as something that only big companies do. And I think now a lot of younger companies that are less mature, not IPO'd companies, public companies, or like on the way to IPO, but even startup scaled ups around like round A, round B, are looking at like doubling down on PR.
And our job as a fractionals is to know that and to guide the decision making from the board or whoever is allowing a budget to hire the right type of resources to know this. Because let's not forget that it's changing rapidly. Like what we would have talked about 6 months ago is definitely not what we are mentioning right now. And the idea that you have to stay on top of what's currently on the top notch, easy to digest, and because smaller brands, and while the big brands have the budgets, they move so slow, and we have the agility within the smaller brands to do exactly what's currently happening. Our job is to define that North Star, co-create it, and make sure that we onboard, offboard accordingly so that it stays still true. And also validate if this North Star actually super realistic, or do we want to move it somehow and somewhere. I think the power of mentoring or coaching or whichever word you want to use your founders to pivot in the right time is so crucial. I think part of the job also for some of my clients is to really be there for showing evidence, but also because it's very lonely to be a founder most cases. And you going back to, if you made it to the senior leadership kind of crew, you're also there to support the founder.
100%.
Very tough decisions with very difficult, things that maybe don't sit super well with them. So partially also we are there to witness the growth of the founder as well, and us as individuals and professionals. But it's a tough work. I mean, I'm not here to, I strongly recommend everyone will be. I just want to make sure that people understand that it's so much overarching than I'm an expert in 2-3 channels. I would say so. Yeah, motivator, mentor, cheerleader. It's so important. It's so important. And if you're not interested in the business of people, it's a tough job if you see it as a job. But if you are there for with the right type of founders, it's a very beautiful job.
That's a great sentence. And on that topic of the right founders, kind of going back to founder readiness to, to work with a fractional like you. I know we talked about kind of like this readiness mentality. How do you kind of sort or decide or qualify in a way, when someone reaches out to you like, hey, Kremena, we saw you on LinkedIn, we heard about you, we got a referral, we want to work with you. How do you kind of decide, are they a right client for me? Are they ready? Can I bring value?
Yeah, that's the most important. As I mentioned, the internal conversations that they need to have before they even approach someone to ask, hey, are you available for a project, or so on and so forth. It really starts there. If they've done their homework to know the exact scope that they think they need you for, it tells you a lot. Because even in the initial conversations, usually my intake calls take not more than 45 minutes. And in the beginning, the first few questions are, why now? Why me? Then you figure out that they thought about what are their problems, or what is it that they want to bring to the table in the next, few rounds of their strategy. Like they're thinking of it. Obviously, someone maybe told them, have you told that maybe you can do this? Some people don't even know that we're available. Some people don't even think that, they think that if they have a head of marketing, it will be sufficient. But then it's lacking this. It's a very awkward timing when the company is ready for the senior hire, or they're still busy with executional pieces. So I would say if they already are covering all their executional parts and they've done the exercise of a strategy, then I simply ask them to walk me through it. And then I'll be asking a couple of other questions on understanding, hey, here are my strengths. And the quality of their questions towards me tells me everything I need to know if they're ready or not. Sometimes there are vanity kind of matrix, such as revenue, recurrent. Like we can do like tick, 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 but how they think about those metrics being achieved is also what gives me. I think I mentioned to you, I work with founders between 5 and 10 million. Why? Because I've identified that making that revenue, it might seem super small for many of the companies, but for the ones that I know I can help, is the right space for me to come in to do my best work. And either being hiring completely new team, or reshuffling the strategy, or strengthening some of the pillars within the strategy, or completely revamping something around it. Also, most of them come to me to go into completely new markets. And I know that when they are thinking of exploring new markets, the pressure on these markets performing is quite big. And then you just have a couple of follow-up questions that immediately show you what evidence they have that they will be successful in Europe or in MENA or any region that they are wishing to enter. And that initial conversation of 45 minutes is I ask them, why now, why me? They will give me their pitch. What are their top 3 priorities? And how would they know that they are successful? That's how I normally ask them. And if how do they know that they are successful is that they'll have like 1 million users on their app or whatever is the tangible thing that they want out of this collaboration, I'll be able to know. And then the last piece of the conversation is literally like, okay, what are the questions that you have for me? Because that also tells me, and I'm extremely open book. I would say like, hey, I've never done that, but it sounds like a challenging enough for me to do, or I know how to do this, and it's really the level of challenge and opportunity. And honestly, for some of those projects, we've put them on a not now, call me back in 3 months. And I'm big on giving homework, and I know that not everyone likes that. And I'm completely okay with it. The same way I have to do my homework when I get into preparation for intake. Is the industry that these people are operating in interests me? Can I learn from it a lot? Would it challenge me enough? Do I have the availability for it? And all of those things really make big difference because I want to be able to show up with my best resources forward. And I want to be challenged enough to really learn even more. Yeah. I think we are in this stage of our career where the opportunity of learning and making sure that you have projects that excite you is way more important than I got my next client for I'm fine for another 9 months. You might, but you might also be not in the right type of. So I take those intakes very serious.
I think it's also kind of like a Maslow pyramid of needs, because obviously you need to get paid. You need to pay your bills, you need to pay your rent, your mortgage, whatever. But then comes in that next layer of, am I enjoying this? Is this feeding my brain and not just my belly? You know, taking pride in what I do. Am I enjoying? Am I learning? Improving?
Absolutely.
And yeah, if you're at that base level, then yeah, you'll probably take whatever. But once you kind of pass that level, that's where I think things get interesting. And that's where I think I agree with you that intakes become a bit more interesting. And I also wanted to say, from as one marketeer to another, that question of why now and why me, from a marketing standpoint, is fantastic, because you're kind of reversing the frame and you're saying, instead of me proving to you why you need me, I'm asking you to justify to yourself why you need me. And I think that works really interesting from a psychological perspective, because they're kind of already building the case of why they want to work with you.
And it's deep. They are the decision makers as well as I can say yes, I'm available, or no, or partially it might be true, partially it might not be true, quite frankly, because I sometimes had to say like, it sounds like good project on paper, but I much rather finish X, Y, and Z so that I can come back and say to you, I can truly help you when this and this and this is done. So I would leave them either with a homework, and some of them are not comfortable and they never come back, and that's okay. No shame around it, because we're all building businesses for longevity. Like, we want them to succeed and we want them to be out there doing good in the world. But sometimes when you ask them, it shows that they've done their homework. They know that they can hire someone else that maybe has a different, but you also tap into my network. You tap into my ability to bring you the right clients and the right resources, which is a big thing when I include you in my client portfolio. Not to be like, oh my God, I'm the best. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, have you considered like what will be the best outcome of our collaboration?
Exactly.
So it often, as you say, it often gives them like, oh, okay, because I do the same exercise
Yeah.
for them. Like, why them and why now? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is this the right client for me? Is this the right time for me?
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of segueing that into our next bit, let's talk about the wrong client or the wrong time, or how I like to call this corner, your Frac'd-up moment. So, I think, fractional work is great, and I think we're doing it because we love it, but it's not all bells and whistles. And we have our highs, and people, especially on LinkedIn, tend to talk a lot about their highs and the best. And I next their ARR in 3 minutes, and I put this prompt in ChatGPT, and it made me a millionaire. And then not a lot of people talk about sometimes their lows or something that didn't really work out. So chatted a bit about this before. I think it will be interesting to hear your Frac'd-up moment, or one Frac'd-up moment that you had.
Yeah, I had my share of
I think we all had. That's the beauty of it.
Frac'd-up
And
moments, but
I want to air those moments.
it's important, as you mentioned, it's important to know when you're like, okay, one that I can share openly for client, non-disclosed client. We had to rehire 5 different agencies to do the social media.
5.
So I would say, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm brutally honest with the number. And mind you, the time frame is like around the 2 years, and it's just this misunderstanding of, wow, you get to hire an agency that can do X, Y, and Z, but then the quality drops dramatically. And I think that those are the channels that I really need to anchor, that if you can embed it into your own teams, because that's my learning from this experience of like, by the time I onboard you, we're missing a gap of like 2, 3, whatever weeks. Organic is a big thing. Paid, we know that we don't want to be putting too much paid because meta is meta. We'll be continuing to meta. They are meting their way. And for me, that was like, wow, how is it that we can't find the right fit for this specific brief? And we use different type of criterias. And this is also why, sometimes if we are not given the chance to experiment with some of our assumptions, it can be embedded as like, oh my God, we're so bad at deciding that. On the 6th time, we found a very, very, very good and potent partner for us. But we had to do so many things. First was like super high up kind of agency. We weren't ready for that. And we didn't have enough evidence to showcase that. But of course, we were trying to pitch to the investors that, hey, because we were in rounding of funding, we were like, oh my God, here is the ballpark for marketing. That was a mistake, and we recognize it. Then we go for something in between. Then you go with and by the time you're on the 5th one, it's so tiring for your soul, literally, to make things right.
Yeah, you're thinking like, why doesn't this work? Why am I keep getting this wrong?
And funnily enough, it's one of those type of brands that it's highly dependent on the visibility on those channels. If it was another brand that we're like, oh, okay, we tried, doesn't work, let's reconvene when we can. I also believe that a lot of the new agencies are just good at putting 2, 3 pages together that look sleek and good and have the buzzwords, but being actually intimately involved with a brand and keeping it growing, I'm a strong believer of embedding those teams if possible, because what you gain, in my experience, from having experts that know it all about the algorithm and work with many brands, it often does not translate to social, mainly because you really need someone involved there. It cannot be like a couple of hours a week. You want to make sure that you're responding immediately. So you might as well just invest heavily in interns that know how to do this very well, have ownership of the whole project, and you give them KPIs that are super realistic rather than inflated, which was my mistake, quite frankly. Yeah, we thought that by paying top tier, we'll get X, Y, and Z, and that often is not the case, and requires you to
Hand holding.
in English, but you know what I mean. Like you need to keep on telling them this and that, and yeah, that was a total what a frack moment for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, 5 agencies is.
I think was too much, no?
But yeah, we all have our moments.
Totally.
Cool. So let's switch gears and switch over to our quickfire round. So I'll ask you a couple of questions and just answer what comes to mind. So first question: Frac or fiction? I've heard a lot of people say that if you want to grow your fractional business, the number one source for leads should be your own network. Frac or fiction?
I think it's a fact. Yeah, I think more than 80% of my clients come through my own network. That's why it's so important to really, really anchor your ability to network with the right type of people that understand what you're trying to do so that they can pitch on your behalf as well. But this only
Beautifully
works when
put.
you do it also the other way around.
What do you mean?
So if I would, for instance, I would also get the chance to pitch my friend's work so that it's, if I would say, hey, I'm available for 7 months, la la la, this is what I look for, but it is the same responsibility. You have to kind of return the favor. If I know that someone in my network is super capable of dealing with X, Y, and Z, and there is a project laying around, it's my duty to share that with that person because I know that will be a good fit because either we work together or we simply know that that's the interest. So it's extremely crucial. Sorry, it didn't go too fiery, but
No, that's okay. But I think that was an important clarification. So, yeah, kind of like sharing the wealth, so to speak, or with co-collaborators within your network.
it's super important.
Perfect. That's a great tip. What is the one tool in your toolbox that you swear by?
Consumer insights. Consumer
Okay.
insights. There are so many tools now, AI tools that you can get samples from audiences that you don't know, especially if you're going into a new market. Ask, 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 and use all those tools available because people will just gladly give you all the information. And we don't need to spend so much money on massive
And
campaigns
time.
to obtain that as well. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Interesting. That's the first time someone answers that question, that answer. What is your definition of a dream client versus a nightmare client?
A dream client knows where they want to go and how they want to go there and understands that they need help in some areas where I can strengthen. The nightmare is that changes their mind every 5 minutes, mainly because it's in this state of like, oh my God, I'm really unsure. When the North Star keeps changing too much, it's a sign that it's not anchored into either truth or ability to get there. And then it gets very, very difficult for me to do I keep saying my best work, but it's literally consistency in the work so that you can see the benefits of it. Yeah.
I had that client in the past that changed his mind every 5 minutes. That was indeed a nightmare client.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you see the future of fractional? It's a big
I,
one.
yeah, I actually think that more people will embark on this, mainly because the sheer amount of people calling me to ask, how does it work? Not just ex-colleagues, but also folks that are into these incubators and scale ups. I think in Europe specifically, it will grow a little bit more. I mean, let's not forget that we've been through periods where we've shown that we can work remotely. Now we're in a period where we can show that we can work for multiple players at the same time if the quality of the work is up to their liking and the understandable deliverables are there. And I also think that for scale ups specifically, it's a great advantage to hire fractional mainly because they don't get to pay, I don't know, insurances. I do take care of my pension, my insurance, my all of my other stuff. So you don't get to worry about that as a company. And I would say that with the economical state at the moment, this is a great advantage for some of the companies to really look into it, to say, I need a senior leadership on this and this specific, I don't know, role, but how would I be able to do it? And you can get to be very creative on not having having them on staff. And I think that that will be way more popular. If I'm wrong in a year, time will tell when we speak about
Yeah.
it. But I still think we're scratching the surface of this in Europe specifically.
I want to frame this last, I don't know, 90 seconds and send it to every founder in Europe.
I think because they misunderstand what we can provide for them. Because think about it, it's so scary to take the first leap in faith for I'm actually ready to grow my business the way I've always set on paper I will do.
Exactly.
And now it's like it's time. Well, put your money where your mouth is, kind of, and you need to be able to equip them with enough evidence that they're on the right path. So, but I see it blooming. I see it way more easy for companies to digest and take advantage. And the more we can help each other to understand what this craft is, because it's an art. You're selling yourself, you're selling your services, you're making a good relationships. It's just like very, very, it's different from when you're in company and you're building your own career. Because there you need the sponsors, then you need this. Here is like it's open source. You need to be really, really, and reputation matters in this field quite a bit more than, yeah.
Okay. So we're kind of nearing the end of our episode, but I do have one last question. So if anyone's listening and they're maybe still a bit earlier in their career path, maybe still full time, and kind of thinking about going fractional, they have aspirations to go fractional. If you could give one piece of advice to someone like that, what would that advice be?
Yeah, start before you're ready. I'm always a big believer in it, because you can call it as fancy as the, because I got the feedback, oh, it's so fancy what it is, like when people misunderstand it. But start before you're ready. See if there is any of your skills that you take for granted because you're so good at it, you don't pay attention to that skill as much as maybe some other people will be gladly asking for your help on that. Even if you are in a full-time, very demanding job like I used to be, and honestly, if a project excited me, I would still allocate time. So it's just a matter of it's the best time to try it out, to say, do I really like working with multiple clients? Am I more kind of consultant role rather than, or mentor or advisory, or whatever label you put into it? Make sure that your skills are really optimized for the solution that someone is seeking, and start before you're ready. You will know immediately, like, does it sit well with you? Do you get excited by the opportunity to help someone bring the business to the next level? And there will be evidence of that. And it might not be immediately your bank account. I must admit that sometimes that takes time, but there will be evidence of your success that is anchored in actually, and don't underestimate what you learned in corporate, because I would be, everyone knows that. Well, no, everyone knows that if they were exposed to the things you've been exposed. Not everyone knows the things you know because they haven't had the chance to do that. They were building a business at the time you were building a career somewhere else. And when you meet those two factors, it's really start before you're ready. Check with your friends who needs help. Who needs help with any of this, and you'll be surprised how much more value you can bring to the surface for them. Yeah, and also comment on the podcast, like, hey, I did like 5 projects, I hated it, or the other way around, mainly because it's interesting to see how everyone is building their journey with this, because it starts with the, I think, like, you're listening to this now and you're like, those two are talking a lot of sense, I can do this too. And just try it out and let us know. Maybe you land a new role that is like way more fulfilling and works so much better for you, because that was one of my motivations as well. I wanted my lifestyle to not be sacrificed for the benefit of having this massive title. I want to still anchor a good lifestyle and do an amazing job. Yeah.
Okay, it's a fantastic advice. All right. Well, Kremena, thank you for this amazing conversation. It's been very, very insightful and a ton of fun. And before we wrap this up, what type of maybe kind of like in a nutshell, what type of founders or companies do you work with? If someone wants to reach out to you, what do they need to make sure that they have when they come look out for you. And obviously, we're going to have your LinkedIn profile in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this exposure. Founders that really want to bring their company into a place that they haven't even thought about, more visionary founders that are seeking the nudge to operate their marketing with additional support, that is senior leadership support, whereas they know that I don't need to convince them what marketing can do for them. Those are the best.
Okay. And you said your sweet spot is like 5 to 10.
10 million revenue, and D2C is primarily what I like, although I have clients into the B2B market. And I specialize also in go-to-market for, like, let's say you're in Europe, you go to the States or vice versa, or different geographies, because I learn tons from those type of interactions as well. Getting to know what the client is really, getting to do those tools that you ask me, like what are my favorite. I literally get excited when people tell me what they need, and we're like, we actually have what you need. And now, how do we bridge the gap between showing the product and positioning it like they really are waiting for, rather than trying to make a market out of thin air? I think that's where sometimes we get trapped as a CMOs.
Yes, of course. Can't agree more with that, unfortunately. All right. So that's it for us today. Kremena, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. It's been a blast having you. And to the people listening, I hope you, or watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. Please like, follow, subscribe, share this with an aspiring fractional. Obviously, comment, and and we'll see you all on the next episode. And
Thank you for
Kremena.
having me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye.